Hello and welcome back, everybody, for a special transmission with myself and Bella in conversation with the one and only Ascended Master Zac, as channeled by our good and dear friend and sister, the one and only Janet Treloar. In today's conversation, right, Bella, we got to ask Zac the big questions that have been on our mind the last couple of weeks.
So we asked many questions about what we've been talking about. Zac goes on a deep dive about what is the convergence of timelines, about three-eye atlas, and about realigning with number 13, and what are the effects of this big moment.
Right, so many of you who've been following our channel for a long time, or indeed in our global community, will have a good pulse on all of the things that we talk about. And maybe some of you are coming into some of this material with just a little bit of information. Hopefully, what Zac shares will bring further illumination and enlightenment to everything that is going on. And the most important thing he shared with us really was to pay attention. You don't necessarily have to be doing anything amazing, but you need to be paying attention to what is going on because that is part of the activation process. So, if you'd like to find out more about the channelings of Zac with Janet and their colleague Hazel, please do check out the Patreon channel that we've just put here below us. And please hopefully enjoy this conversation with Zac and Janet as much as we did, because we feel that it really helped us bring all of the various pieces we've been looking at into one collective gestalt, which, as Zac shares, is actually being powered by all of us.
Yes, and Zac and Janet already have a new YouTube channel that you can support by going to this link here as well. So we hope you enjoy this conversation. It is truly amazing, and it weaves all of the different parts that we've been talking about for quite a while, especially the moment of golden convergence of timelines.
Alrighty, we hope you enjoy the chat.
Welcome, my dears. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, Zac.
Hello, Zac.
How are you?
All the better to be speaking to the pair of you. I wondered when you would pop up. With all that is occurring in the world, is it not?
Right. Yes, there are so many exciting things going on, Zac, and that's why we felt it would be very appropriate to have a good conversation where we touch on some of those topics for all of us.
Right. So today, Zac, we have a number of topics that we have been tracking through our various different offerings on our YouTube platform and to our tribe. And we'd like to ask you an array of questions. It brings in a number of these threads, including the Three Eye Atlas, comet, asteroid, whatever it might be, the Golden Timeline of Convergence, the 13 sign sidereal astrology, and a few other things related around this, as we feel we're moving into an expansive part of the ascension process. But also there are some weird things going on in our reality that we'd like to ask you about, perhaps to throw some light on. So we're going to speak to you today, Zac, for about 45 minutes and share some of these questions with our audience. And we're going to be delighted to hear what you have to say, right, Bella?
Yes.
So,
good. Before begin, practical thing. And Joe's going to remove her hair.
Okay.
I want you to be able to see as the energy comes across. Good.
Good.
Wonderful.
So
Very
Bella's got
good.
some questions she's going to ask, I think, today, Zac.
Right. So the first one we'd like to start with is the big three-eye atlas topic and the swarm of comets that have arrived into our system. So we'd love to hear what you can share about that. We're seeing it as a big sign. We think well, we're going to let you give us your thoughts on that or whatever you can share about it.
The Earth is primed for change. Now, you probably think already, but there has been so much change. And there has. But much of it is creating the perfect situation for this event to arrive. Now, why do I call it an event? Because it is an event not just in humanity's history, but history of your solar system, the entire solar system. As it entered this part of the cuboid of your universe, it is bringing with it energetic intelligence. Energetic intelligence, why is that different from how humans think of intelligence? Humans often consider intelligence in connection purely with the mind, and of course everything that gets disseminated from that. Energetic intelligence is a way that energy itself, simply perceived, within a certain boundary state of that which it is coming into contact with, delivers a different type of intelligence. So it does not have to be communicated. You know how humans do, say, talking one to one. It does not have to come into complete contact as you would have with a chemist in a laboratory. Here, energetic intelligence simply needs to be within the periphery of the vision of the solar plexus, the solar system. You understand? Now we will get on to the solar plexus because this is connected with it as well. But as it traverses and it moves, certainly in between certain predominant planets in your solar system that has very strong effect on the earth, as well as of course the close proximity at certain times to the earth, the intelligence that is then coming off, delivered through the plasma shield and plasma, you could say the wake that it leaves, is bringing together a new high in the energy around you. Now, if you had not been prepared, if humanity had not changed, if the Schumann resonance, for example, of the Earth had not changed, if this had come to light 100 years ago, then it could have been quite difficult. However, because the timing is perfect, you are in a state now where you are far more receptive and desiring of change. Things had got so bad, you could say, on the planet for many, many people, whether they are thinking of these things consciously or not, that they certainly are deeply desiring a change, and it is a foundational change within them. So all the prep that has been done is a bit like a boat that is out at sea and dropping the anchor. What you have done is stabilize by dropping the anchor. Now, this does not hinder the boat on top of the sea from bobbing around and moving with the waves, even in a storm, but it does tether it, and it is needing that anchor so it does not get too buffeted. Before we continue, does all of this make sense, my dear?
Yeah.
It does, Zac. And can you also share where this three-eye atlas is actually coming from? Is it interdimensional or
Interstellar.
we know it's interstellar, but what part is it coming from and what is the intention?
The organic nature of it has come from beyond your cuboid of the universe. Now, in a way, its essence is where it was born. For some, you could think of it as a birthing pool of new universes, new star systems, and so forth. This is like an offshoot. Now, to do the trajectory, and this is where it goes beyond energetic intelligence. What you'll get is the energetic intelligence. However, it has been populated by other intelligence. What do you mean by that, Zachariah? Everyone's ears prick up. What do you mean by other intelligence? Not all spaceships are made. Here on Earth, if you want to travel in the skies, you have to build yourself a plane, a rocket, and so forth. So it is natural for most people to think that the terminology of what an idea of a spaceship, something that carries an intelligent life form from one place to another, has got to be built. However, there is technology in the way of consciousness and superconsciousness that goes way beyond and does not have to make do with something that it has to deal with different atmospheres and so forth. Instead, populating an organic structure with, you could think of it a little bit like telepathy, in the sense of putting in a number of different galactic consciousnesses. So it is not it has come from one place or another. This is a combination. So some which are incarnate, who are then delivering, you could say, part of their consciousness into that piece of rock. And others, you could give an example, an energy such as myself, that has awareness and wisdom, but does not incarnate or using an incarnated body to do it, to then fill up that organic structure. And you may think, well, why? Why are they doing this? The trajectory has its own uh, path, of course. However, when it is coming so close to solar systems, such as your own, uh, uh, it is a bit like, marbles, ha ha, and a child playing and throwing another marble to where some of the others are. There is a trajectory, but actually your solar system is very, very close together, and the intelligence is helping to inform that rock, that asteroid, whatever you wish to actually call it in that way, to make sure it does not come too close to not only the Earth, but to Mars or any of the other uh, uh, planets, and particularly your sun, so that it would cause a detrimental effect. It is quite mind-boggling, you could imagine, how specific this needs to be able to be close enough to impart and let go through the plasma field the energetic intelligence, whilst also remaining in an alignment so that it does not cause harm. Does this make sense, my dear?
It does, Zach. Yeah. And maybe if it's not too much of a stretch, given what you've just said, can we perhaps feel into whether some part of our consciousness here on planet Earth is also inhabiting Atlas 3i in the way that you just talked about yourself? So that really and truly what is happening with the trajectory of Atlas 3i is partially also being navigated by us here down on planet Earth. Is that possibly correct?
I'm so pleased you asked that question because I was only allowed to say if you asked.
Ah, okay. Thank you very
Beautiful.
much. Golden bananas all round.
So, something we do not talk about that often is the collective consciousness in the higher realms of humanity. It is not static, as you can imagine, and it changes with the generations which are on the planet. There have been times in your humanity's history where even the very highest level of humanity's consciousness was still in destructive mode because of how it was working through, the experiences it was having, and this was still in a quite explosive way. Now, do you remember we are saying after equinox, fully stepping out of destruction energy as the priority. Destruction, you are living on a planet that regenerates, so there'll always be something that you could put under the label of destruction. However, it will not be the predominant force. The predominant force is creative energy. And humanity, the whole reason why souls choose when they want incarnations, because they can have them all over the place and of all sorts of different descriptions, to come here with a focus on being part of humanity, and particularly at the time you are living, is to lift up, to take the self beyond, to move into betterment, to elevate, to change. And this is in alignment with a planet that is doing the same, a solar system which is doing the same, your cuboid of the universe, which is like a laboratory petri dish, ideal for this particular situation. And therefore, dum 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 dum, drum roll, please. The actual collective consciousness of humanity at exactly this time, straight as you go into creative energy, before people, start going off and doing other things, we're talking in the highest levels of subconsciousness, can as one join forces with all the other higher energies populating that one huge piece of rock, and allow themselves to come in and be part of this experience. So you may be experiencing it from within and within a physical, flesh and bone body here on earth. And you may even look up to the skies and think, in terms of size and mass, I'm very tiny. But not only is your soul huge as you wish it to be, but your collective consciousness, simply as part of humanity, if you are alive on earth, it is not who is deserving and not to be part of it. You are part of this collective consciousness. And this is a strong, strong bias towards creative change, creative new energy of a new way of being, a new way of life. And so therefore, you are doing it from within, you are doing it externally, but now you are doing it, you could even say, intergalactically, with this interstellar object, as they're calling it, but populated by this high intelligence to ensure that the energy that is bringing, a bit like Santa Claus bringing gifts to a small child on a Christmas Eve, is bringing through not only the energy to then elevate further and to change and to come into alignment with other dimensions, also within your keyboard of the universe, which are far more comfortable to be in as well. So yes, in a way, you could look up and when you see that red streak in the sky, you could go, oh, part of my consciousness is up there, and you would not be wrong. Understand? Yes.
I mean, it actually makes so much sense, Zach, if we consider ourselves to be eternal beings who are actually connected to everything that is in the universe. It's just that we've been somewhat disconnected down here on planet Earth. Then why wouldn't we come at this time to assist ourselves in this process in the most glorious, spectacularly positive way that we could? So it feels to us as if the Atlas 3i is here to remind us of the fact that we are those beings, and also to deliver maybe some galactic fairy dust onto planet Earth, planet Mars, planet Venus, and planet Jupiter as it flies by, to somehow elevate this part of the universe, and in doing so lift our consciousness, maybe activate some of our dormant DNA, so that we remember that we are actually the cosmic humans we've always been.
Is that not so? Exactly. One thing I would heed people from. This is very, very high levels of collective consciousness, and it knows what it's doing. If you sit at home and think, oh my goodness, I better help. You start tuning in and you start trying to look at the telescope and say what trajectory. Not only will it be a bit of a waste of time for you, but you do not want to muddle. This is not where to put your energies, and I'm sure we will talk about this, or what you can do as in the physical and with your energy here. But something that this is changing dramatically with its energetic intelligence. It is cutting through. It is not a very nice analogy, I understand, but the best way to put it is, you can imagine you were wounded. The whole solar system, not just Earth, was wounded a very, 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 very long time ago. And as it healed, it did not heal completely. And there have been lots of strange things that have happened. And just like on a body, when you get a scab that goes over a wound, what this is doing is cutting through and taking away that scab so that it can finally heal. Now, before you turn up your nose and think, what a horrible analogy that is using. If you think though, when you've grazed your knee or something, and you take that scab off, at first it may sting. It may feel very vulnerable. You may feel very open, and these are very potent feelings that you may feel. You may, for some reason, think, I don't know why, but I feel as if I'm walking down the road without any clothes on. Unless you are, a naturist who enjoys such things. And so you could feel quite vulnerable, but we expect this to go away quite quickly, because a bit like having the air to breathe, having nature to heal, the cosmos, as you say, the super fairy dust that is coming off this, the plasma that is then giving it through in the energy intelligence, is allowing this to not only finally heal, but become better than it was before. One of my favorite expressions, as you know. But to shift and change. And in so doing, you can not only breathe easier, change and be, but you can see through your world. And in that seeing through of your world, you will start to harmonize with the particular time that you are in. And your time may be slightly out from your neighbor's time or your friend's time. There are going to be a number of different timings. So also don't get too annoyed if you make a plan to meet up with a friend at a certain time, at a train station, and they turn up at a slightly different time, but they think it's right and you think it's right and so forth. Because this is going to be a little bit of a time to actually realign time, the new time that is coming as well. Understand? Yes, my dears.
Yes, and it's perfect as a perfect segue for the next question, which I want us to weave with 3i Atlas, and is the Golden Convergence of Timelines. Is this point in the middle of October where the Gregorian calendar, the Mayan calendar, the galactic calendar, they all fuse or converge now in October. And I'd like to ask you, because it's also around the time that the Atlas is going to be really close to the sun, on the other side of the sun where we won't see it. So is there anything you can share with us about this convergence and the connection to 3i Atlas? I want us to weave the whole tapestry today.
Well, first of all, only a very strange person would think that it was a coincidence, would they not?
Right.
Not many people could argue with all of these things coming together at once.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what has actually happened is during the process of time, if we are not talking about time just generally, because, we would have to be here for a very long time, but if we're talking about time in terms of Earth times, due to different eras on your planet, in connection with your solar system and other, due to frequency shifts and change, due to certain rays, particularly from the center of your universe, that has put pressure and shifts and changes, as well as the electromagnetic forces that go way beyond those of your planet, of your sun, of the movement of everything. What actually happens is time, a bit like what are those things, tick tock, that pianists and others use, like the metronome. Yes, all of these things. What has actually happened is over a very, very vast period, you are keeping time, and time is in its place because of mass, due to the mass of the planets and even of your solar system, because even where it looks like there is nothing, there is plasma, and before the plasma there is the etheric and the electrical field. Now, why, Zachariah, are you talking all about this with time? You could have generations and generations, ancestors and ancestors upon your planet, that this would not even pop up as a question, because the time is moving, or in a sense of the time itself is not very different from one year to the next. However, when you have a shift in mass, time has to follow, because time is all connected with the mass of the density of a physical world. Now, what this means is there have been times in your human history that you have got written word for, where this has started to shift and change, where people started to gain, for example, emotional intelligence. It was not that they were emotionless, but they went more with the flow of emotions the way our animal instincts and nature does. Then they came to a time where there was a lot of stresses and different things, and there needed to be an uprising. There needed to be an elevation of emotional intelligence. And we all know that the emotions affect the electromagnetic field and so forth. So you could say that there have been times in your history where you have had shifts and changes in the electromagnetic field, which then had a knock-on effect with a slight change of mass because frequency changes, and then it gets a bit lighter. So then the time and what you would call a calendar, whoever that calendar was from, any indigenous communities and so forth, starts to become a little bit out. And you have other new peoples and mathematics and other who say, oh, let us do it this way, or let us do it this way. And so you have had this hodgepodge over hundreds of years where you had different calendars, different situations put in. And the reason why, and they have not really realized, is because time on your planet Earth has been changing. Even in recent years, when we feel into people, we notice people where some people say, gosh, time goes so slowly. I cannot believe how slowly. And there are other people that go, oh my goodness, my years are whizzing away. I blink and another day is gone. People feel time differently
Yeah.
depending on their emotional state.
Yeah.
Okay. So we know this. This is something that people understand as well. So your emotional state ties you in to the timeline as well. And I'm using the term timeline in a different way. Maybe I should use a different terminology. But the time that you understand, the time that you see. People, with all this foundational work, everything that we have been speaking of, everywhere that you are at, everything that has been done, whether they've been doing it consciously or not, and just being part of the planet and the changes of the frequency, are now primed and ready. The old time does not suit them anymore. So therefore, with this convergence as well, and everything that you were speaking of, all these things that happened in October, and indeed uh, coming into the end of the year and so forth, as you know it, or you know that is the accepted norm of what the calendar dates are, means that not only does it usher in a new time, but it ushers in other opportunities. Because when people accept, and this is accepting in their heart far more than, 5 years down the line, people could be still using the same diaries, the same calendars, perhaps. But in their heart, they have accepted the difference in feel of time, what their idea of a minute or an hour or so forth will feel differently, and they will accept it rather than trying to move away from it, have the emotional intelligence to go with it. This also paves the way because it is not having to fight against itself anymore. It's a bit like anything. If you have a couple, for example, and they are so intent on their niggles between each other and rubbing against each other, they don't actually get out and do all the wonderful things that they want to do together. If they are in harmony, it opens doors for all sorts of other experiences to happen. And this is the same thing. Once the time comes into harmony, it opens doors for further evolution, further new ways of being, further ways of how the heart's desire is, of how they truly want it to be. We're back to that humanity's collective consciousness that now it is into the creative mode. Indeed desires harmony, desires collaboration, desires oneness. It has gone through eras and eras of disparity from one another, of misunderstanding, of standing alone, of separation, and all of the heartache that brings in. Therefore, to get over the hurty hearts and wanting to have full hearts, they are coming into a place of this oneness and acceptance of a new time, a new way of being. And all this fairy dust that is coming in, of course, will help with this. But does this make sense, my dears? How this is tying in, and why time itself, due to the changes of mass, is absolutely primed and ready to change, but that some people may feel it slightly differently. Some people may use an old calendar, some a new calendar, but they will find a path together that actually moves as one. Does this make sense to you, my dears?
Yes, does that mean that we are yet again jumping into another cuboid or another timeline, or are we just on track and we're just solidifying that? What is happening with this convergence exactly?
A bit like a paradox. You are going through a quantum leap. You are going into opening doorways into further dimensions, further possibilities. But at the same time, this is the paradox, you are actually solidifying what was already there. So again, a bit like in chemistry, you know, when something is new, some new combination in a fluid form, if you just tip it, it can move, and it is all a bit all over the place. But once it is led to be settled and it becomes solidified, it has far more integrity in its structure, whilst it may be still something brand new.
Yes. And there is a point of balance. We reach an equilibrium point, like in every reaction.
This leads me to an interesting question, Zac, which is there or are there other timelines or another predominant timeline here on planet Earth that another part of our consciousness is existing in, which is that harmonious timeline, and that we can somehow move our awareness across into? Maybe some might call this the supposed Tartaria timeline, or other timelines that we actually already consciously exist on, but the one that we're aware of is the one that we're talking to you here with. Is that possible, Zac, or is that just way off?
So in terms of, if you think of something that is existing, that is sharing the same moment, so such as now, when we are talking, sharing the same moment, the other parallels that are there, they are not quite as you are describing, because the convergence hasn't happened yet.
That's what I was.
However, when we look into the future, see if we fast forward to what you know of at this time as the spring equinox. So once we're past the convergence, once we're past the initial stages and the changes, then you could say, yes, there is definitely a part that is living in a far more what you might consider a perfect way. Haha, strange choice of words, but just simply for whoever is listening at this time, you know, their own ideal of perfection, because time will have come into alignment. The fairy dust will have come in. The scab has been taken off. The shifts and changes. You are then at least 6 months into a period of creative power. And so you are in, it is a bit like a cake where it has got the ideal ingredients coming together. You've actually now populated it with all the things it needs. Of course, again, the paradox of humanity is that the higher consciousness can have one idea, and on earth you can have another, and you can do different things with it. However, we are giving you, you know, the top-notch superfood ingredients for your cake. We expect, and what we are seeing when we go forward to that, and then we are looking at all the different uh, potential lines that are coming out, we see them as generally very, very favorable, or, you know, the predominance of them are favorable. There will always be some that are not so favorable, because when we are looking at potentials, there has to be everything there. But the predominance of it, because we feel that once people can breathe easier, once this has all happened, then well, it was like the creative roof will be taken off. And because of the changes that people have been going through, a lot of their creativity, and we've said this before, you know, is coming out of love, not fear. It is coming out of wanting to do things, you know, not creating something just purely for themselves. We're already seeing this, you know, creating free energy, not just for self, but for a community, for whole place, for the globe, whatever it may be. We've seen it for some time, but we think a bit like a boulder, going downhill, a snowball, you know, that is creating, gaining momentum and getting more and more and more. And so then there could be this explosion that happens where everybody is truly in alignment for a desire to help each other. And when we help each other, everything can happen so much quicker. Understand? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Zac. And this is the next part, the next question, which also fits into everything, since you just mentioned perfection and changes. We've now switched to 13 sign astrology. We're bringing back the serpent and Ophiuchus into our astrology. And we're not, our sun is not in Scorpio anymore, it's now in Virgo. So we'd like you to talk a little bit about the 13 sign astrology and what is,
Fine.
yes, and how this all fits as part of the weaving we're doing.
And the recalibration even.
So again, it is perspectives. Haha. This is very true, what you are saying, but there is also a truthism for others, because this is what I was saying about the timing and how things can look slightly different from where you are sitting. And because the mass, your solar system and others, is affected by time, if you are in a slightly different time, you actually see, and you can physically see things in slightly different ways. And what affects you is slightly different. So, for example, for yourselves, you'll be seeing it in one way, and this is absolutely true and perfect for yourself and for a huge amount of people. And other people will be able to look and point and give evidence and say, but I see it this way. And everything that comes off the back of that will
Yeah.
be true for them as well.
Yeah.
This may well change in time after the convergence, because that is a coming together of everything. So it is an interesting point, because there is a truism uh, that is different for many. Does this make sense, my dear?
Yes. So the idea has been to recalibrate to the 1320 frequency with the soul kin, the 13 signs, the 13 stellar nations, the 13, and part of that is bringing back the great mother, the goddess energy. So we wanted to hear from you how this bigger weaving happens and where we're going with this. And
Exactly. Now, the reason why we're talking about what is the truism, for a lot of people, this will be perfect for them now. They will be able to uh, recalibrate themselves to that.
Mhm.
But there will be others where it may be later on. Okay, so we're making this point now because many of you will be listening and going, yes, I get it exactly. And there will be others that are going, it is as if it is like a muddle in my head. It is as if I do not quite understand it. And it is because their energy is still in a slightly different time as
Mhm.
well. Now, that is not a right or wrong, by the way. This isn't about frequency, up, down, left, right, have to do this to get to this. We would say honor where you are
Yeah.
in your time, because if you do not resist it, you will naturally shift and change, and it will come to you at the right times. Okay. So that said, for yourselves and for the majority of people listening here that are in that space, what the recalibration with the 13 is doing is actually going back to a very primal part of the energy system. We often talk about the primal parts in the physical body, but this is a primal part in the energy system. Now, what that primal part did, and this is where we get to the solar plexus, I mentioned earlier.
Good.
Through the solar plexus, what you can start to do, we often talk about the grounding and survival and all different things through the solar plexus, but is actually be guided by the stars, as it were, by these without even having to have actual mental knowledge of them. By coming into this alignment, it is allowing that primal part to return. It has been pushed a little bit to the side because of needs, general needs of being a human and so forth, and how we may see ourselves in our world, in our community, and so forth. But actually, by coming back, what you'll actually start to find is that by going into that primal force, you are then guided by the heavens so much more. So rather than also a predominance, let us simply say, from, of course, the daily barrage of energy, both physical and other, that you get from the sun and the moon, and you may also calibrate with the earth, and you may have connections, with all these other things, talking to everybody that is out there. but this would actually be more that can come all into harmony. So it goes further out. It is like an outreaching to further systems beyond that can then just naturally come through. And do you not think how interesting it is that in many cultures the number 13 has been seen to be unlucky? There are buildings and so forth that choose not to have a 13th floor.
Yeah.
There are people who will hold off saying, no, 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 I'm not going to have my baby on this day because it is the number 13.
Yeah.
It has been very much in the energetic makeup given to people that the 13 was something to be fearful of. Now, that was a different time when that actually was started, and it came through many different routes, that 13, and why that actually was. However, at that particular time, should people have completely opened up to this, the world was a different place energetically. People were a different place energetically. They could be overwhelmed by the experience of coming into this particular alignment. Now, if you lived in harmony with your environment and others, particularly like the Mayans and so forth that I know, particularly Bella, all of these things, then there was nothing to be scared of at all. But if you were living in a completely different community and it was, as we were saying, separation and all of these things, and there was a lot of fear to come into connection, it would be very, very hard to act then on what your energetic state in connection with the universe and the world was telling you, because you were trying to follow all these different paths that were told to you. There's certain work, there's certain family, there's certain responsibilities, social etiquette, blah, 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 blah. But now, with the convergence and other, and people being freer, it is a very useful time for them to embrace the 13, shall we say, in all its forms, to allow that opening up, to allow that connection, to allow farther reaching energies from further out in the cosmos, you could say, to penetrate on a moment by moment basis, not just when you were tuning in, when you were doing things, when you were looking things, so that it can guide you in harmony with nature. This is what is important here. It guides you in harmony with nature. And what does that really mean? It means that it puts your best interests, as it were, at heart, but also your surroundings. It's a bit like when somebody walks lightly upon the earth. It means by being in harmony, you naturally, as you live your life, are doing so in a way that is useful to nature rather than being a burden upon it. Does this make sense, my dear?
Yes, Zac, so much. And I'd like you to start wrapping up the weaving we're doing here. What happens to our DNA as we recalibrate to 13 in this time convergence with Atlas coming by? What happens to our DNA at this point? Do we start our upgrade, crystalline? I'd like you to share that part. I have some ideas. I'd like you to elaborate.
How many strands of DNA are you aware of at this time, my dear?
48?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Now, that has often been looked at in fractals of 12, you understand. Well, of course, there have been 13. It is just the extra one in each of these multiples has been purely energetic, ones that cannot be seen, ones that cannot be monitored in that way. And you could say, well, does that mean that it's been dormant? It is not that, it is just have been laying in a slumber state, because the convergence and so forth had not happened, because we were not welcoming in the 13, because actually what that does is open up an absolute direct connection with the heart for this evolution period. Now, of course, evolution is a big umbrella term, but what we are really speaking of here is, as you say, with the rock. Ha ha! flying through your solar system with the plasma gifts of that fairy dust. Fairy dust, people think that I'm talking purely about fairies. They are very prevalent, but they're not up on that rock. It is the plasma. And we've been speaking much about actually the importance and how everything is plasma, but the plasma holds the passion. So if the etheric is love energy and the building blocks of life, plasma is the passion energy. And what we mean by that, of course, passion, creation, fire. It is the thing that changes things. So having this flitter, 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 whilst you come into alignment with the time so that you can all breathe easier and come into this place that everyone has been talking about for so long, whilst then opening doorways into all these other dimensions, all these other wonderful things, and becoming even more comfortable. What then is, and we will use the word inspired in the body. We do not want to say you need to have some of this plasma to do it. Everyone will just be sleeping outside going, shower on me, But what actually happens energetically is the 13th strand wakes up. Okay, and so it goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, 13, then it keeps going on and on and on. So there's all of these 13 strands, which are purely in an energetic state, which now can come into harmony with everything, now can start to communicate with the rest of the DNA, with your genes, with your cellular being, and then, of course, through your energy field. But because it is so connected there with the plasma state, the passion, the fire, the creativity, it is not just there just to be. It starts to create something new. Now, for some people, because of intention and what they are desiring to change, a dragonfly on a superconscious level needs to desire to become a dragonfly from what they were before. When you're in the chrysalis, you need to desire. Not everybody has the desire to change fully, their whole physical spectrum. They may have the desire simply to become, a better, a stronger version than they were before. Whatever it might be, you have the power. You already have the power, but this is like a boon. This is a gift. You have this coming on board to then start to structurally, on a physical level, be able to change within yourself. And it is not just humans. This is true of all animals, all the insects, all the amphibians, all the fishes, all the plant life. This is happening to nature. It is waking up these dormant, or should I say slumbering parts that just were not ready. Would have been all confusing if they came online. So before you think, well, everyone's going to, climb into a chrysalis and they're going to come out completely differently, it will, of course, it is heralding in a new era. And it will be over time all things happen, but everything has to start with the spark. And this is like, when you're building a campfire and all it is wood and it is cold. But you need that spark. And then what from that spark comes is the fire, the warmth, what it generates, cooking your delicious food, all of these sorts of things. But you need that spark, and this is what is happening in the big scheme of things. You could say in the universe, this is creating this spark that humanity has been desiring for so long. It is done with the destruction. It is wanting to see what it can create, what it can move into, and through that, through the whole solar system, start to change on a galactic level rather than just what you may see within your four walls at home. Understood? Yes.
Yes, Zac, that's wonderful. So, are we then accessing our divine blueprint, or is this a point of evolution where we mutate into an upgrade of what we are, or is it the same thing anyway? And what do you want to share with people or recommend for us to go through this window, through this portal? What should we focus on?
Everything is within sacred geometry. The starting of the sacred geometry through the etheric, carried through the plasma, can continue on for millennia, further than millennia, way after here. It has the building blocks for everything. So as you say, it is already there, yes. However, there are pieces of the puzzle. A bit like when you watch a play, and right at the start, you do not see all the players that are in the wings and what stories they have to tell. But over time, it happens. And this is the same here. Just as this 13th strand DNA is being woken up at this particular timeline and this convergence and these things, there are many other aspects going forward as well. So I wouldn't say it is a change to the blueprint, because the blueprint is there. And when you actually filter down, it is down to the sacred geometry which is there, but it is how it is shifted and changed, how those blocks have been put together, and through heart's desire, through changes, through evolution, through the desire that is beyond uh, even humanity, in the sense of, the high consciousness of humanity, the desire of the universe to expand and to change and to be and to renew and to become something different, to change and morph. Then what you actually start to happen is you start to see something that seems brand new. It is just that it has not been the right time for that spark to light up. Does this answer your question, my dear?
Yeah, Zac, I also wanted like a message to wrap up this session, because many people have been feeling depleted, tired, maybe even a little bit of futility going on there. Do you want to send the message that we are very like in the golden timeline, that we're about to go through the big changes, or what is the message now for people?
So when you are born, you have an idea, roughly, at least, of a certain length of life that you have. And all of those living on this planet, a big chunk of what their soul is going to be experiencing is about this collective experience. And therefore, everybody that is living now within their soul knew that this convergence was coming. Now, this is something we did not talk about a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever, because there would be no point. You can't just keep saying, get ready, get ready, get ready to people. But we knew this was coming. Now, this means that because things are most likely to be very different afterwards, souls as a whole had a little bit of an agenda. We're not talking about a tick list. I've done all these things, but certain ways they are and things. Some of the people who are feeling this despondency, this I don't really have much get up and go, I don't really know what to do, it is because they've actually finished that part. And really, they are waiting for this new to come in. The majority of people on the planet are not feeling that. And that is because they haven't completed everything. You understand?
Yeah.
So it is more about where you are at with your soul. If you are feeling quite despondent at this time, if you are feeling tiredness and fatigue, unfortunately come with the territory. There is a lot of pressure on your planet at the moment. However, actual feelings of loss of interest, when you may not for other reasons, but just a general malaise, a general I don't really know what to do. This is a reaction within of saying, well, don't waste your energy making a whole lot of plans that you may look at completely different. Don't waste your energy writing a book that straight afterwards you rip up and say, well, that's old news. I've got new things to write about, even though some people will be doing this sort of thing. So
Yeah.
if you're not, what I would say is use the time for play. Enjoy. It's not even in a human timeline. This is not very far away. Do not put pressure on self to think, but I must. Do what you need to for the responsibilities in your life and for others, of course. But then with that extra time, just say, I'm just going to enjoy the ride. When you are going off on holiday and you are maybe on a boat or on a plane, you can't do much while you are there. Someone else is taking you. And this is a bit like what you're experiencing now. In that time, use that time instead maybe to do something. Maybe take up a hobby that you never thought of before. Do something. But also just take some moments to see that you're healthy, as healthy as you can be. If there's something out of whack on any aspect within you, For most people, of course, there are going to be things, but there are things that maybe you think, well, I just haven't had time to deal with that, or that is just something that has been a constant for the last 5 years. Take the time now because you have the time now. Even in this next month, say for example, just to really just take a little bit of time for yourself, because the healthier, and what we really mean by that is the more balanced, the more aligned, the more connected you are with the earth, really ground into the earth, really think about your electrical energy and establish yourself, plant yourself, say, I'm here, come on, rock, come and get me, I am part of this solar system, the better place you will be to do it. So a bit of a strange answer probably that you are thinking, but I would say, if you're feeling the malaise, just go out and play instead. Understand, yes.
I love the advice. Thank you so much, Zac. Any final question for the...
No, thank you so much, Zac. I think that you've given us and our audience a wonderful overview of the various threads that not only us, but other people have been tracking. And perhaps the invitation here is for people to expand their awareness of themselves so that they can embrace their cosmic intergalactic consciousness, because if you don't believe it exists and you're resistant to it, then you're not going to be able to experience it. And I think at least if you're open to that with all of the information that you've shared and all of the advice that you've also given, because many people have actually already gone through the process and are sort of sat waiting for the next bus or train to arrive, which can feel a little weird. So thank you also for giving some advice there, Zac. So as we come to the conclusion of today's deep dive into the various energetic components that are shaping our universe, our planet, our own consciousness right now, I think that Zac has given us a really good navigation guide for the convergence that we are now very much in. So thank you very much, Zac. We look forward to speaking to you again, and we will bid farewell to our audience now.
Of course. Rather than saying goodbye or adieu, I will say see you on the other side.
Yay!
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Righty. Yes, of course, you from where we are, you're already on the other side, Zac. So we just have to shift our dial to come and meet you in your place. So
In the 26th.
In the 26th dimension. So on that note, thank you so much, Zac. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for this special session as we continue to look at what is happening in our world around us right now, because it's very important to keep your awareness on the pulse and to move with the flow. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you again, Zac, and thank you also to our beloved sister, Janet, for channeling Zac today. In Lakesh, I am another you. We'll see you all again very soon.